Yeah. So welcome to the second session of third day. We have Dr. Nizari Parikh with us for the session on mental health, a paradigm shift. She is MD psychiatry resident working in IMS and SUM Hospital, Bhubaneswar, as well as she is working as COVID hospital in Bhubaneswar as frontline service provider. She is founder of a venture named Melody by Nirzari, which provides services in mental health as holistic treatment plans. She has to her credit one international paper in surgery on plastic surgery subject and research was scholarship worthy. And she has presented papers and lectures at different conferences and platforms. Uh, I welcome Dr. Nizari from the busy schedule of the duty as she's as we told that she's frontline active member in COVID care system and just she was relieved and she has joined. So we appreciate uh, your hard work and we are thankful that though you have busy schedule you have joined with us. So I request Nirzari, Dr. Nirzari, to take the session further, please.
Thank you, Megalbhai, for such a great introduction. Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Nirzari Parikh, MD Psychiatry resident from IMS in Some Hospital, Bhubaneswar, and founder of Melody by Dr. Nirzari. Today, I have been given this opportunity to speak about mental health in front of such an esteemed audience, and it gives me immense pleasure to speak about this topic as it is the most relevant issue in the today's world, and the recent pandemic has made us realize the importance of mental health. And I am thankful to the organizers for providing me with this opportunity. Now I will start sharing my presentation. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. So today, uh, just a second. Okay, so today what I want to share with you is mental health and why it should get its paradigm shift. We are a resilient, okay, so pandemic and mental health. As Secretary General of the United Nations said, we are in this together and we will get through this together. So, we are a resilient and adaptable species. We have faced many natural and man-made disasters since time immemorial. In fact, life is a challenge daily because the struggle is everywhere since we are born. In this dog-eat-dog world, only those who are fit will survive. As we all know, a pandemic is presently sweeping the globe. We will recover soon, even after suffering much damage, but we will recover. Infectious diseases have a common occurrence in past, but in pandemic time, this information overload has led to more unrest and chaos. The physical sequelae of the disease are nevertheless predictable based on the present scientific understanding. But the mental, social, financial, and spiritual health repercussions have come to light during this lockdown period. This realization has exposed the framework of society. So, people learn about facts and data from unreliable sources many times. Then they get afraid and restless. Despite being of much help, not all people know how to use this knowledge for personal benefit. We should take this as an opportunity to change ourselves, to blend in the changing world. I have tried to use information both from present day sources and from history to build community consciousness by changing the perspective and to guide the behavior in future. I am going to suggest certain approaches to deal with these times. Humans have an inherent capability of survival. This time also we will survive, but we have to evolve not only physically but also mentally. It requires no special infrastructure and is also within the reach of every human being. Just by changing the way we look at life, we can make life easier. We are going to discuss about what is really important. So I'm not going to flood with your mind with elaborate details of working of viruses, mechanisms of production of vaccines and medicines, and the intricate details about their actions. Instead, we will discuss about what is really important and helpful for our mental health and to deal with it existential crisis. So now we'll see what mental health issues came to light. Because of this corona scare, we have realized we got panic attacks and generalized anxiety. So first we have to recognize how to uh, how these symptoms appear. So those are if someone is overthinking or creating avoidance from reality or sweating profusely, some has constant stomach issues or panic attacks. All these kind of symptoms will help you recognize that you are having anxiety in general. If some people are not able to cope up with the stress, and if they are having problem in chemical imbalance, then they might get depression. Depression signs and symptoms are they will feel helpless, then they will feel guilt that they are not able to do anything, then that will lead to shame, then they feel anger, withdrawing from friends and family because they are not able to cope up with their uh, feelings which emotions which they are feeling, then no concentration, thoughts of death, changes in appetite, energy loss, sleep problems, and alcohol and drug abuse. So, other symptoms some might experience are worry that something really bad is going to happen, irritability, anger, hopelessness, guilt, shame. For example, for having survived or for not helping or saving others. Then confusion, emotional numbness, feeling unreal, appearing withdrawn or very still, not responding to others and not speaking at all, not being able to take care of oneself or family members. As per say, not able to eat or drink properly, not able to make simple decisions, relationship issues, all these conditions may need professional help. Earlier, we were having busy and hectic schedules, but during this pandemic, when we had enough time to spend with our families, we could notice many of such mental health issues among our near and dear ones. So it's a prime time to make sure that our beloved distressed people are not left alone and professional help should be taken to keep them safe so that they can function in their daily life. Now, our major concern is stigma. Despite knowing all these things, there was another issue of major concern which was present even prior to this pandemic and is still present everywhere is the stigma towards mental disorders. Since long, this has been a great hindrance in the path of providing care and understanding the people with mental health issues. So now we really need to stand up to stigma and let's talk about mental health. Burden of mental disorders. Stigma exists despite the fact that mental disorders are common and represent a significant and worldwide public health concern. The global burden of disease due to mental illness accounts for 21 to 32% of years lived. Means if there is a age gap of age of 100 years, then a one patient, if he is having mental illness, then 21 to 32 years of his life will be lived with disability. And if he is taking treatment or everyone is helping who are around him, then the prevalence of disability adjusted life years is 7 to 13%. The Lancet Commission on Global Mental Health and Sustainable Development just recently estimated a loss of 16 trillion US dollars to the global economy due to mental disorders in the period of 2010 to 2013. Now let's talk about India. In 2017, 197.3 million people were affected with mental disorders. Amongst them, 45.7 million with depressive disorder and 44.9 million with anxiety disorders. In 2015 and 16, prevalence of mental morbidity in more than 18 years of age was 10.6%, and substance use disorders was 22.4%. So lifetime prevalence of mental disorder is 13.7%, lifetime prevalence of suicide is 16.5%, and right now in India, active intervention, people who are in need of active intervention are 150 million Indians, whereas only 0.75 psychiatrists per 1 lakh people. So it's really a prime time to address stigma. So what is stigma? It is a Greek origin word. It originally referred to the brand or scab burned or cut into the body, signifying that the bearer was a slave or criminal or otherwise set apart from the general society. Stigma defined as something that detracts from the character or reputation of person or group as mark or sign, etc., indicating that something is not considered normal or standard. Stigma is defined in terms of the co-occurrence of its components: labeling, stereotyping, separation, status loss, and discrimination. So stigma by itself has to be recognized as a symptom of mental disorder, not only an impact. So these are the components of stigma, and it starts with stereotypes. What are stereotypes? Stereotypes are considered social because they represent collective notions of group. For example, most people with mental illness are dangerous. Then it comes to prejudice. Person who agrees with these stereotypes and develop an emotional reaction to it. So that's right. All mentally ill are dangerous and I'm scared of them. So all mentally ill are dangerous, that is a stereotype. People are agreeing with it and then they are developing an emotional reaction that they are dangerous, so we are afraid of them. So there are two types of prejudice. One is authoritarianism, the belief that persons with mental illness as a class are inferior to normal people and therefore require coercive handling. And another is benevolence, that is a kindness to unfortunates, leading to behavior akin to how parents treat children. Then it all brings down to discrimination. Discrimination is an act based on this prejudice. I'm not going to rent my apartment to persons with mental illness because they are dangerous. Now, it is interesting to see there are so many types of stigmas. There are 7 types of stigma. First, which we seen that stereotypes, prejudice, discrimination, that is public stigma. Because of this public stigma, self-stigma occurs because patient with mental illness will internalize all these things and will start to believe all these things to be true and creates a self-stigma. He believes that all these things which are labeling him or in making him inferior, all these things are true. Then there is perceived stigma. Perceived stigma is the belief that others have negative beliefs about people with mental illness. Then there is type 4, label avoidance. This is when a person chooses not to seek mental health treatment to avoid being assigned a stigmatizing label. Label avoidance is one of the most harmful forms of stigma because it stops from patients and family members to seek help or treatment. Then there is a 5th type is stigma by association. Stigma by association occurs when the effects of stigma are extended to someone linked to a person with mental health difficulties. This type of stigma is also known as courtesy stigma and associative stigma. Like someone has a mentally ill patient in their family, the whole family will be stigmatized in society as, yes, that person has that family has those kind of people in their family, so we should be aware of them. Then there is a sixth type of stigma is structural stigma. Institutional policies or other societal structures that result in decreased opportunities for people with mental illness are considered structural stigma. And seventh type is health practitioner stigma. This takes place anytime a health professional allows stereotypes and prejudices about mental illness to negatively affect a patient's care. So now let us know what this kind of stigmas are. This image is a type of self stigma. Because of public stigma, patient will start to believe that leadership might treat me differently, getting help could harm my career, and I will be seen as weak. And then it is interesting to know what mental health stigma sounds like. So patient with mental health, when he is feeling low or any symptoms he is having, then people will say you are faking it. Or can't you just choose to be happy? Other people have it a lot worse. So your problem is not that much of importance. Try and exercise, you will get better. So because of this stigma, there are so many harmful effects. Like patient will create a self-doubt in himself, then less opportunities in careers, insurance won't cover treatment, reluctance to seek treatment, reluctance to seek help. Then there is harassment and violence and bullying because people are afraid of them. Lack of understanding from loved ones will keep them more in stress because they are not able to seek help. Then there is three of our targets. Persons who hide their mental disorders from the public and suffer a private shame. Persons who have been publicly labeled as mentally ill and suffer societal scorn. Society itself, which suffers fears and misinformation based on stigma and myth. So you may find yourself around these things, but might have gone unnoticed. The types of stigma experiences. First is violence. Public fears nurtured by selective reporting by the media appear unwarranted. Then there is employment. 50% of employer would never or occasionally employ the currently mentally ill, compared with 56% of other employers who were judged to be usually or always biased against employing the currently ill. Then there is marriage and heredity. Emphasis on genetic or biological causes has the potential to decrease stigma. It was found that such a biological attribution can have both positive and negative effects on stigma. So, if you get genetic profile before getting married, then it can give you positive impact as there are genes of mental illness or not, but it can also impact negatively because it creates stigma. Then media discrimination. In films and news, they project a horrifying, feared image of the psychiatry. For example, electric convulsive therapy presented as a horrific procedure. Like they will show you in a room there is a patient who is bound to chair, and then they are giving them electric shock and he's getting seizure like anything, and even doctors and nurses are scared of those procedure. It is not really like that. In reality, ECT procedure is given with general anesthesia, so there is no such reaction to it, and it is very much important when there is resistant cases which are not treatable by medications. Okay, so let's see more of media examples. So in films, they will show that if a character is mentally ill, they are usually violent. But it's not true. If person is having delusion and hallucination that someone is trying to harm him or someone is planning against him, he won't be violent. He will be so scared that he will be withdrawn from people. He will sit in a corner and will be so afraid of people that he won't talk to anyone. So when they are showing that they are mentally ill or they are having hallucinations and delusions, usually they are more likely to be victims of violent crimes. Then Shutter Island and Girl Interrupted movies, both the movies about people and insane asylum, both portray people with mental illness as crazy. Calling them crazy or mad is illegal because they are called as mentally disabled or mentally ill. People should get educated and respect these kind of mental illnesses, that it is not a good thing to call anyone crazy, because people who are suffering, actually suffering from mental illness, they will not be able to open up and get try to get help because of these labels. Then there is a movie called Fight Club. In it, it is about a man who suffers from insomnia, also shows signs of delusional thoughts and dissociative identity disorders. First thing, dissociative disorder never comes with delusional thoughts. Dissociative disorder is totally different. And when there is delusion and hallucination, it is called a psychosis, which is associated with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, acute ATPD, those kind of disorders. So when a person is suffering from dissociative disorder, all the friends and family members and society goes and watch these movies, and then they will think that dissociative disorder has these kind of symptoms. Then they will come back and ask those patient and patient's family that, are you also seeing people, are you also thinking that all the people are against you? They will feel such shame or guilt because of these things. So it creates stigma as a whole. This media, this film, when they show wrong information just to make it dramatic or just to make it more interesting so people will watch it, that creates stigma and fear in the society. So impacts of stigma, we should really know that what it creates. So mental illness is considered untreatable, and treatment used in mental health services is seen as inefficient and dangerous. Mental hospitals are viewed with horror. Like in movies, they show mental hospital as some horror abandoned site, but in reality, it is really a world class mental health facilities they provide in wards where patient can be safe from all the sharp objects or fans. They are really safe from that. So stigmatization does not stop at the person who has mental illness. It spreads to the family and remains present across generations. So people will remember, no, no, his grandfather had that mental illness, so we should be aware of that family. Then there is self stigma. We already talked about self stigma, how they internalize the public stigma and start to feel guilt and shame that they cannot do anything. They are helpless because they are like this. Then that lead to discrimination and impact on recruitment. Um, Anyone who has suffered from a mental illness is liable to be discriminated against even if they have made a full recovery. It is not true that mental illnesses cannot be cured or treated. They are very manageable. So even if they are recovered, people will see them with doubt. Then when there is an intense competition for resources, as there frequently is, any new funds tend to go to services for the kinds of patients the public regard as most deserving. For example, breast cancer, cardiovascular diseases, cervix cancer, or infectious diseases. I'm not saying that these are not important, but just because mental health issues are not visible, it's not that they are not significant. So, funding and recruitment are determined by the attitudes of the people in charge. So, now we'll see the examples of impacts of stigma in society. So, stigma keeps legislatures from giving enough funding for the appropriate care of mental illness. It keeps insurance companies from giving enough coverage for mental illness. It keeps neighbors from allowing ex mentally ill persons from living in their community. And it keeps employers from giving mentally ill person an adequate and equal chance. So now we really should talk about stigma cycle because it is a vicious cycle. We saw how stigma is created. Now we'll see how stigma is sustained in the society. So I will describe this with an example. Let's take an example of a depressive patient. Depressive patient has symptoms of worthlessness, hopelessness, low mood, loss of energy. He is not able to eat properly or sleep properly. He is not able to work. He has lost all interest in his life. So, what will do that will create impairment and disability that will restrict him from doing any activities or contribute into society roles. And already media and news are spreading this negative views and stereotypes in mass. So what will happen that already he is restricted, so he himself will feel low about it, and all these views, they will both will give him negative labeling. Negative labeling will lead to his diminished self-esteem and self-stigma, that he will feel he is worthless. He's already feeling worthless. This negative labeling will make him feel more worthless, will lead to isolation and withdrawal from society. He's already restricted from activities and social roles. Now he'll create more isolation and withdraw more from social life, which will create more lack of confidence and skills, and it will continue like this. So it is a vicious cycle. We have to break this cycle over here. We have to support him rather than negatively label him. So now we'll see what are the levels of stigma and how to deal with it. So there is a cognitive level. When a child is developing from 3 years to age to 18 years of age, its mind constantly develops on its cognitive level. So education will make him aware, make him teach that what is true, what is wrong, and when there is a gray zone. It is never always right and wrong and there is no in between. It's not like that. So we have to make changes at cognitive level. So educating general public and care providers regarding the mental disorders and removing various biases and prejudices from their minds by correct information and knowledge, so they can provide all these knowledge to children. Then affective level, when people are themselves scared from mentally ill or they feel disgusted by seeing mentally ill patients, then only intervention is psychological. Those people who don't easily understand how to deal with mental disorder patients need to undergo certain psychological intervention themselves to control their anger, disgust, fear. So they feel that these patients should be tied away and they should take treatments, but actually themselves who need psychological intervention to understand that how to deal with their emotions which they are having. Then there is denial level. Denial level is we should encourage using nice and kind terminology for addressing mentally ill, as we talked that calling them mad or crazy is illegal, and we should call them as mentally disabled or mentally ill. Like children who are born with mental retardation, their brain development is not up to the mark. They are mentally retarded. So they are not even called as mentally retarded. For them, there is a terminology as intellectually disabled. But people call them idiot or moron, which is not fair to them, and it creates so much misunderstanding and lack of knowledge that we should really focus on. Then there is economic origin, the political intervention. People with mental disorders are discriminated at workplaces, and adequate political intervention is required to make means of livelihood available for such individuals. Then evolutionary origin, this is a major task, and we'll need a lot of time to remove the stigma which is existing in our culture. and will need an active participation by media. Then there is discrimination level. Proper laws and enforcement of laws is required to deal with people who discriminate and maltreat the patients of mental disorders. So we have to ourselves be aware and make other people aware about this, so all can help. Now we'll see some examples of stigma and how can be aware. So those with depression are lazy, but we should think like those with depression are strong for fighting painful symptoms 24 into 7. Those with anxiety are rude, but actually anxiety patients are hypersensitive to that environment, and that can lead to negative consequences. Those with suicidal thoughts are attention seeking. Those who are suicidal, we should help them to reach out to receive support, so that they can be helped to stay alive. Then there is how mental illness stigma looks. So these are the conditions as depression, anxiety, anorexia, bipolar. Depression is perceived as being weak. So solution, people will give these kind of solutions. Anxiety is perceived as being unable to calm down. We'll just say stop worrying. It's not that, you know, those are trivial things which we need to focus on. That just by telling them that stop worrying, it's not going to stop, because it's not something he's creating, he's having it, he's not creating it. Then there is anorexia, not eating enough. Just by telling them just eat more, it's not that tough. It is not like that. He is having a mental disorder which is not letting him eat enough. It's not in his hands. Then there is bipolar disorder. These people are being too dramatic. They cannot even control themselves. So, don't be crazy. So, how we can be aware of that? Depression, anxiety, anorexia, bipolar disorders, all these and many more, which are caused by a combination of genetic predisposition, personality factors, and environmental events or triggers or circumstances. So for them, solution is a holistic treatment plan that helps you cope and heal cognitively, emotionally, behaviorally, and spiritually over time. Now, how we should end stigma in children. So there is 1 in 5 children experience a mental health disorder, and half don't receive the treatment they need because of the stigma. So we should, how we can support children and stop the negative stigma around mental health. First, we should educate ourselves so that we can educate children about mental health. Then we can share real life examples of people with mental health disorders in a story form so they can understand better. We should not only share them mental illness disorder symptoms, but we should also share stories of overcoming those mental health disorders, that it is possible and it is not that scary. And explain mental health has a range of symptoms, and listen to and support others with mental health concerns. So these are some examples. Like, don't say someone is crazy, say mentally ill. Then someone has cleanliness. Someone likes to be clean. It's not that anyone who likes to arrange things and keep things clean has OCD. So we should not use he is such an OCD. We should not use terms like that. Use mental illnesses term only when intending to discuss diagnosed mental illness. Don't say I'm so depressed or I had a panic attack if it is untrue. Just say sad or nervous instead of actual mental illness or symptoms. Then don't use terminology for death casually, like I really want to die. You feel beat of hopeless, but you should not use these words because it is very unfair to the people who are truly struggling. So avoid using suicide as colloquial language. Then don't undermine or put down mental illness treatment, such as it's just a therapy, or you just have to sit on a couch and talk about it, you just have to cope, it's not big deal. Regard mental health resources as positive and useful. don't negatively refer to psychological medication. So I had this one patient of psychosis. His family members and the patient was so reluctant to take treatments because they were saying no, no. In our society, everyone is saying this psychiatric medications are so bad. If you will take them, then they will make you more crazy. You are already crazy, then you are taking all this medication. They will make you more crazy. So these medications are not helpful. Those are psychiatric medications for some reason. They have some chemical uh, content which can make your chemical balance in your brain proper, equal, or balanced. So they can reduce your symptoms and treat you. So understand and respect psychological medications as beneficial and necessary to some patients. So let's summarize. Simplest way to understand is to ask ourselves, what if we treated every illness the way we treat mental illness? Let's say some has diabetes and we tell them, you just think you need your insulin medication stuff because you can't deal with reality. Someone had a heart attack and because of that this person had to work overtime, and she is sighing about it that I had to put in overtime because Joe went and had a heart attack or something. Some people will do anything to get out of work. And then this person has the cancer, so I'm getting tired of this cancer of yours. So that person will say, I think it's high time you should step out of it. It's not how it works. Then that this person is with cystic fibrosis and this lady is astonished. What do you mean there's some guy with cystic fibrosis just walking around? Can't we lock these people up? So it is the simplest way to understand that every illness, the way we look at it, we should look at mental illness like that only. So on a lighter note, let's make the environment bit lighter. And let us summarize. Every patient has different needs. Although to treat patients effectively, we need to listen to them. Reflective listening is the first step of treatment. So my goal is to provide proper assessment for early prevention and customized holistic treatments according to individual needs to make the society healthier. So to contribute my bit in improving the mental health of people around me, I came up with an initiative recently known as Melody by Dr. Nirzari. So thank you so much for being patient with me and giving me this chance. I am sure and I really hope I was helpful today, and tomorrow we all can be aware and help people who are in need. Thank you.
Thank you,
So
Dr. Nirzari.
yes, if
Now
anyone has
the
any questions.
okay, here are a few questions. One is, what are the hurdles we have to overcome for telemedicine in psychiatry?
Okay, so um, for telemedicine in psychiatry, the reality is we can in antipsychotic medicines there are many side effects which we should keep in check regularly. So we have to see patients of, because psychotic patients has different kind of symptoms. So we cannot just give antipsychotic medication over the phone. So that is the main hurdle. Other medicines are getting approved by government day by day, but main problem is in antipsychotic medications.
Okay, one question is there, how to overcome anxiety?
Okay. Anxiety disorder. If it is general anxiety, then obviously first thing first we tell patients to first breathing exercises, relaxing techniques, then uh, distract your mind from the issue which are causing anxiety and focus in one thing or meditate. Those are some very basic levels. But if you have generalized anxiety disorder or any phobic anxiety, like if you are claustrophobic or agoraphobia or anxiety of open spaces or like anxiety of heights, then you need proper counseling methods, which are systemic desensitization, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and with the help of medicines, you can overcome those kind of anxiety. And if you are having panic attacks are usually not because of reasons, they just come because sometimes brain goes haywire. It is a very layman language to speak as well. Panic attacks has no reason, it just appears. So if you are having panic attacks, for that you need proper medicines. So that those are the treatments how you overcome anxiety. You need professional help if it is bothering your socio occupational functioning. Next question.
Yeah. The same question, I mean, further it is asked what is normally done in CBT?
Okay, so CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. So in that, our mind is usually trained, or we can say developed in behave in such a way. So that is the years of repetition of behaving in sequence. So what happens is, if you behave, if you see that there is a uh, what will you call some hurdles on the road, so you will take your car this side, you will not go in that puddle. So what happens is, when your brain sees, okay, this is a hurdle I'm going to face, my boss is going to scold me today, so I have to be bit nervous, and but I can handle this matter. But what happens that if there is some situation like you cannot handle this matter, or let's see in OCD, patients are facing obsessional thoughts of contamination. They are saying ki, oh my goodness, there is germs everywhere, I cannot get rid of these germs, I have to wash my hands repetitively. So they will wash their hands for 4 hours. So in CBT what we teach is that behavior, how to, on cognitive level, how to improve your behavior. So if you are thinking this in this pattern, then we will break that pattern. We will teach you how to do that, do another behavior which will give reward to your brain, so that we can create another pattern of behavior which is not stressful and which will not which will bring you out of that disorder. So that is CBT. It is a supportive therapy. It is not a main therapy. You have to take medications for these disorders, but it is a supportive therapy to break the pattern of years which was built, and then train your brain to do things in a different manner.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there is one question.
Okay.
Can we quantify the pandemic financial loss using the explanatory model interview catalog stigma scale? It is there in the chat box.
Okay, we can quantify not according to we can quantify, but there are many limitations in these kind of studies. As of, if we speak about India, then we cannot go to every person and see if it is, if they are facing what kind of financial loss. Not all people will come. Those are, there are many limitations to it, like poor people, we are not even able to quantify real numbers who is having corona, who is corona positive. So pandemic financial loss, we can say as as a political intervention, yes, we can quantify, but not as for real numbers.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nizari. I think now
Thank
there are
you
no
so much.
questions. Yeah, thank you for your session and you can say insight about and how to tackle the mental health and how to proceed further without focusing on the negative side or the stigma. Uh, I have just received a message that you are now again going for the duty. So thank you
Yes,
for
yes.
yeah, thank and that for that COVID treatment. So please take care, stay safe, and I will be again there in further consultation with this
Sure,
mental health.
sure.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yes.
So now participants, we will have a break and we'll meet at 2 p.m. Where we will have a session by Dr. Rakshit Divakar. So please join by 1:45. Don't wait for my message to come in. So we'll have a break now and we join at 1:45.